Good evening, Patriots. I'm Paramedic, and this is my nightly broadcast, bringing you the news live from CloudHub, Channel 115. Welcome to the broadcast. We have no news to report from our Military Intelligence Insider. And speaking of our Military Intelligence Insider, if you need information about the military intelligence operation, you might want to check out my book, Calm Before the Storm. It discusses a lot of the early posts by the Military Intelligence Insider from, November and December of 2017. We talk in that book, in the first book, about how the Q Clearance Patriot got started, why they posted on 4chan, why they moved. Some of the early posts in the operation have to do with the Iran deal, the Clinton Foundation, and there is a glossary in the back of the book that has 500 terms, abbreviations, acronyms, and names of agencies you may or may not be familiar with. Calm Before the Storm is available on both Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And now let's jump into tonight's news. So President Trump is in Pennsylvania tonight. He's going to be in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, doing a rally. Sorry, it's not a rally. It is a freedom protest because, well, you can't do a rally because of the lockdowns. So he's doing a freedom protest, and he's going live right now. So hope you're able to catch the broadcast tonight. I'll put that out on my Twitter account. It is the first day of voting in Texas, and voters who turned out found long lines. Record number of voters showing up, both in Georgia and Texas. Today is the second day of voting in Georgia. So there were long lines, and there are also some technical problems in both Atlanta and San Antonio, which were resolved. But I think the heavy turnout in early voting is definitely going to be a good sign for President Trump. You can look all around the country, you see a lot of enthusiasm for the president, the rallies, the boat parades, MAGA drag the interstate. And there's very little energy for Joe Biden. Wherever he goes, he's lucky to get 15 people show up at one of his events. So I think heavy turnout in voting is a good sign for the president. All right, in Virginia, a fiber optic cable was cut on the last day of voter registration today, causing the state's voter registration website to go offline. Governor Northam has called for an extension of the voter registration. How convenient. The website is back up, by the way. All right, moving along. World news. As the United States enters into this agreement with Taiwan to provide weapons to Taiwan, China is not happy about this. So in September, it was announced, and this was a Reuters scoop, that the United States is entering into an agreement with Taiwan to provide 7 different military weapons packages to Taiwan. And China hasn't been happy about it. They're making a lot of noise. All right. So yesterday it was announced that the U.S. is going to be selling, and the White House, when they do this, they make an announcement to Congress. Members of Congress go and tell the media. So the White House is going to be looking at deals with Taiwan for the high mobility artillery rocket system from Lockheed Martin, Boeing's Standoff land attack missile expanded response, and an external sensor pod for the F-16 fighter jets. So predictably, China started saber rattling, threatening the United States if we don't back off, if we don't cancel these sales to China, there's going to be all kinds of problems. And a Chinese diplomat specifically said China firmly opposes this, to fully recognize the very damaging nature of its arms sales to Taiwan. China wants U.S. to back off, and they said China will make a legitimate and necessary reaction in the light of the development situation. Well, it gets even worse for China because this afternoon it was announced that the White House is going to be selling M9 drones and a coastal defense missile system to Taiwan. And that would be 4 and 5 of the 7 weapon systems that they're going to be selling to Taiwan. So that just story just came out from Reuters. They got an exclusive on that. So I don't anticipate we're going to be going to war with China anytime soon. But these moves, we just need to know about these things. And I think we need to keep the president and our country in prayer so that we don't end up at war. All right. Speaking of war, U.S. envoy Marshall Billingsley was doing a public speech today, and he announced that U.S. and Russia have reached an agreement in principle to extend the New START nuclear arms treaty that expires in February. So this is an existing nuclear arms treaty. It was signed in 2011. It's a 10-year treaty. It expires in February of 2021. President Trump is trying to get an extension signed of this treaty before the election. Now there's ongoing negotiations. The United States is looking for a 5-year extension. Russia is looking at other options. They have not agreed into the details yet. They have agreed in principle. And this would be a win-win. I mean, it'd be good for Putin if he can sign an agreement. It'd be good for the president to get this agreement signed. So they're going in the right direction. And that's an important thing. All right, from Mike Pompeo this afternoon. State Department is now requesting think tank and academic institutions in the U.S. to publicly disclose on their websites any financial support they receive from foreign governments, particularly Iran and China. And so Pompeo said that the disclosure of foreign funding is not a requirement for engaging with such entities for the State Department, he added. But the department staff is going to be mindful of whether those disclosures have been made and of specific funding sources that are disclosed when they make those determinations about how the State Department is going to engage with these think tanks and academic institutions. So Pompeo is trying to bring transparency to the process and allow public disclosure of who is funding these think tanks and institutions. I think is a great idea. All right, so also sticking with Pompeo, he tweeted this out today. The election of China, Russia, and Cuba to the United Nations Human Rights Council validates the U.S. decision to withdraw from the Council in 2018 and use other venues to protect and promote universal human rights. So there was an announcement today that Russia, China, Pakistan, and Cuba were added to the UN Human Rights Council. Now, what does it tell you about the United Nations Human Rights Council when nations like China and Pakistan and Cuba, who have some of the worst records on human rights, are voted into the Human Rights Council? Well, you have the fox guarding the hen house, and Pompeo was not happy about it, and I think it just shows what a joke the UN overall is, and in particular the Human Rights Council. All right, so 1 million people have sent me links to this video, and I have not posted this on social media. It is a video about the cover-up of the death of the SEAL Team 6. There's also information in this video about Osama bin Laden, some very serious allegations about Joe Biden, Obama, and Hillary Clinton, and some criminality that went on during the Obama administration. So I have not shared this on social media because in this video, this man who claims to be a CIA operative or whistleblower says he has documentary evidence. He says he has audio, he says he has video, and he says he has documents proving all of these allegations, and they're going to be turned over. The problem is they're not public yet. They haven't been turned over, or they may have been, but we don't have any access to them yet. The mainstream media has been completely avoiding this story, despite the fact that President Trump retweeted Oscar the Midnight Rider, his Twitter account, who is an Intelligence 17 account. All right, so Trump retweeted this account, and it has an article talking about this CIA whistleblower and allegations against Biden, and the fact that, or the allegation that they paid $152 billion to cover up the death of SEAL Team 6, how they were taken out. So, The only reason I'm mentioning this is that the president did retweet this. So if the president's retweeting it, he probably knows something about it. And I would imagine we're going to be getting more information at some point. Supposedly, these files have been turned over to a congressman. We don't know who that congressman is, but that is the scoop right now. And I'm not going to go any further into it. I've listened to watched the video. I'm observing. I just don't want to get ahead of the story because the documents, videos, and information has not been made public yet. All right. Today it was announced that Mark Zuckerberg and his wife are donating $100 million to help the election infrastructure. So they're donating this money to CTCL, which is a Chicago-based nonprofit that, according to its website, is working to foster a more informed and engaged democracy. Right. Well, it's Chicago-based, probably a political action committee set up by Obama and his cronies, and I'm sure that this money is probably going to help turn out Democrat voters. And that's actually the Thomas More Society, is a conservative legal group, and they're representing clients in lawsuits against this organization. And he says this money is nothing more than Zuckerberg's attempt to turn out the Democrat vote. So we know that Facebook is engaging in all kinds of election interference against people that they claim are interfering in the election. You can't make this stuff up. Twitter, same thing. So this shows you kind of the level of panic that I think the swamp is in right now. All right. News on the Ghislaine Maxwell front. So Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal trial, is scheduled for July of next year. Currently, there is a case pending with the Second Circuit Court of Appeals in D.C. And Ghislaine Maxwell is asking the court to overturn an earlier decision that ordered her 2016 deposition to be made public. So this was in the civil case against, she was sued by Virginia Giuffre. And in that suit, there's like a 450-page deposition that was part of that lawsuit. So earlier this year, the court ruled that that deposition needed to be made public, and her attorneys are now asking the Second Circuit Court of Appeals to overturn that decision. I listened to a little bit of the argument, and basically the judge they're not happy with this. They don't want to overturn this decision. They want this information to be made public. I don't think it's going to be overturned. I think the information is going to be made public. There's a stay right now that is preventing this from being made public, but I think eventually it will be. All right. Swamp draining update. Wouldn't be my news without some information about Johnny McEntee. So the White House Office of Presidential Personnel, which is headed by Johnny McEntee, he's a 30-year-old Trump loyalist. That office is considering asking all political appointees in the administration to submit a conditional resignation letter prior to the election. All right. So this is from Politico. They are asking all appointees in the administration to submit a resignation letter, and then they're considering this. I should say they haven't made a decision on whether they're going to do it. It's under consideration. So if they went forward with it, they would then evaluate each letter and evaluate each person, and decide who gets to stay and who gets to go. And a lot of swampy, corrupt people have been brought into the Trump administration through the Presidential Office of Personnel. And now that McEntee is there, he's been cleaning house, but this would be a very quick way to get rid of a lot of swampy people. So that is all the news I have for today. That is it. Kind of a short news day. Like I said, no drops from our intelligence insider. If this broadcast has encouraged you, you might want to subscribe. You can also support me on Subscribestar. Please keep me and Denise in prayer. Keep the president in prayer. Keep the military intelligence insider in prayer. Keep the Secret Service and the military in prayer. And I'll catch you on the next broadcast.